So y'all remember a few weeks ago, we had attorney Ron Haley here to talk a little bit about the situation with juveniles at Angola and whatever logic was behind it. Well, most recently you have seen, I'm sure, that a Louisiana judge has decided to put an end to that practice, and there's a lot of discussion about it. Ron and I had a chat last week about this situation, and I think that you and your team were prepared to argue on behalf of these juveniles. So update on everyone on where this is now.
So the state of Louisiana took an appeal to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is in New Orleans. Well, one of the branches are in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. However, prior to a ruling from the Fifth Circuit, the state of Louisiana decided to remove all of the juveniles from Angola. Now the question remains whether or not they removed them or they're planning on bringing them back based on what happens at the Fifth Circuit.
Yeah.
So we're kind of in limbo right now as to what's going to happen. But what I can say today is that as of right now, there are no children in Angola, which is a great thing.
Jackson? Where are they taking them?
Various places.
Various places?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the conditions at Angola that caused all of the hullabaloo over them being there anyway.
I think you could look directly into Judge Dick's ruling. Okay. She outlined 7 major promises that were made by OJJ in the state of Louisiana when she allowed for children to be placed there originally. And she said, listen, I don't like it, but right now the situation is untenable, and she gave OJJ a chance because of promises that they made and promises that they broke. The conditions there were punitive. They were not rehabilitative. And that's a big problem, regardless of where you find yourself on the spectrum. If it's, look, you do the crime, you got to do the time. If that's your belief. But it's different with juveniles. The law says it has to be different with juveniles. And as a society, we would want it to be different from juveniles.
Right.
Because these individuals that are housed there are serving juvenile sentences, which means at some point, regardless of you could hate what they did to your core, they are going to come out at some point, and we need to be in a position to make sure that these juveniles succeed as an adult. And if you put them in a punitive situation, you put them in a situation where they're not getting any education.
You're creating criminals.
You're creating
hardcore criminals.
I don't want to put that on the kids, but you're exasperating the problem.
Well, I mean, look, I had this conversation a couple days ago, and it has never involved saying, let them out on the streets.
No, it hasn't, and I never said that.
It has only involved what you said. They are going to end up back on the streets. So you hope that you can provide some kind of smart investment into their future. I'm not talking about money, I mean education, skill set. So when they get out, they can be productive and not go back to the major leagues of incarceration.
Mental health counseling. We were seeing a lot of these kids suffer from childhood trauma. This is the opportunity while you have them in secured care to build them back up, build up that emotional confidence, to give them the tools to succeed. Not only a skill, a trade, an education, but also the emotional and mental bandwidth to handle the real world.
Well, you know, for me, man, we don't, as a society here, the investment in rehabilitation has been largely just lip service. And then people come out, not even just talking about the kids, the adults come out without a skill. Because they have been on the inside, it impacts what kinds of jobs they can get. So now you're messing with their ability to earn and put themselves in a positive or forward-moving momentum. So what does it do? It creates a cycle. I remember being downtown, finishing lunch with a friend of mine, and he and I were walking out of there, and a guy walked over and he asked for, you know, any money we had. I don't carry cash, you know. And I said, I don't have any cash on me, man. And he said, look, man, I'm just trying to do something to keep from going back. Just like that. How many of those folks are walking the streets of communities around the country? If you don't want it. Anyway, I won't go on a tangent. So what are the next steps?
Well, the next steps, we are tracking what's going to happen at the Fifth Circuit. What we're hoping to get is a commitment. The easiest thing would be a commitment from the state of Louisiana. And we may have that by the time the show airs, that children are not going to be brought back to Angola. We do know that they are building a new facility, supposed to be state of the art, up at Swanson. They're completely redoing it. Hopefully that facility, that secure care facility, has the things that are needed to nurture these juveniles, has the services that are needed to make sure that they are productive and coming out. Listen, going back to the Angola thing, part of it wasn't just the lack of education that they were getting. It was the fact that these kids were in cell confinement, as they call it. What we call it is solitary confinement, for sometimes days and weeks at a time. Science has told what that does to adults, let alone what it does to juveniles. Yeah. And yet it created a very punitive environment, and that is not good for rehabilitation and making sure these kids are going to succeed when they get out.
Well, look, I'm always on the record with where I stand on things, and I stand with you guys in trying to make certain that this is right. The investment now is a lot less than the investment in the future if we don't do this. So when this thing rolls forward, can we get you to come back to give us an update?
Absolutely.
Attorney Ron Haley. Talking about investment, I have a fantastic story, and you'll hear it next. Stay right there.